speaking, it's actually a really good segue. Speaking of Jerry Jones, and speaking of, the situation in Dallas, we just got done talking about Russell Wilson and his situation in Seattle, how he's probably not going to get traded. What's going on with Dak Prescott and Jerry Jones in this contract extension battle for the second year in a row? And this is definitive proof to me that 2020 is just a blur for everybody. I mean, it feels like we're in 2020 again. We're having the exact same conversations that we were having last year about Dak Prescott and his contract situation with the Cowboys. Although the circumstances and the stakes are a little bit higher at this point, it's the exact same situation that we've been talking about for multiple years now. And in that aspect, it's like, man, this is very tiring. But, the relief is coming in the fact that this is all going to end very soon. And in the gigantic war between Dak Prescott and Jerry Jones, Dak Prescott has finally won, I think. He hasn't been paid yet, but when you take a look at the options that Jerry Jones has in front of him, none of them are really the most entertaining ideas. You either, A, let Dak Prescott go, he pursues a team in free agency, and he gets paid. And, a lot of the conversation has been, is Dak really worth close to $40 million a year? I don't think he is. He's a good quarterback, but he's not $40 million worth good. I think the talent that Dak Prescott has displayed in different aspects and different times in his career has been either overstated or overhyped. And while, yes, you can definitely see the drop in production that the Cowboys had after Dak Prescott got hurt in Week 5, if you look back at the rest of his career, there were some serious inconsistencies at times. And to me, at this point, that doesn't mean he's worth $40 million. So, and really, that's kind of what Jerry Jones thought as well. It's like, man, $40 million is a lot to pay. Even though as much as, Dak is America's quarterback currently on America's team, it's like $40 million for some inconsistent play here or there. I mean, he's a good quarterback, but he's not $40 million great quarterback. So now we're in a situation where it's like, okay, Jerry, you've got three options. You either release Dak Prescott, he gets the $40 million or whatever he wants from somewhere else by a team that really needs a quarterback. Maybe Chicago out of all of those, because they're still trying to figure out what they want to do with Foles and Trubisky. And I think that Ryan Pace would probably have his best shot at succeeding in Chicago in terms of finding a quarterback with Dak Prescott. Now, whether the money's there, that's questionable. So you either release or let Dak Prescott go in free agency. You either franchise tag him a second time to where the price to pay him next season would even be exponentially more, and Dak Prescott would be able to earn $70 million guaranteed over the past two seasons, which is just a mind-blowing, an absolutely mind-blowing number. Or you pay the contract now. You do $40 million for 4 or 5 years, and Dak Prescott gets exactly what he wants. So when you lay out all of those options, excluding the reality of a sign and trade, which that doesn't really happen all that much in the NFL, excluding that, it's like, man, Jerry, your options aren't that good. And this is the byproduct of what you get from last year when we were talking about this, of just refusing to add another year onto that contract. Again, I can't remember whether it was the 4-year deal that Dak declined or maybe it was the 5-year. Can't remember which way that went, whether Dak wanted one less year or he wanted one more year. But regardless of that, being unable to agree at that given time and just being very petty about the details of the contract has put Jerry Jones and the Cowboys in such a worse position than they were last season. And again, Jerry Jones has absolutely overthought this. He's overplayed his hand. He has now put him and his franchise in a much worse situation financially. And, the hard thing is that, the Dallas Cowboys really aren't ready to go searching for another quarterback yet. Andy Dalton is a free agent as well. And if you remember from my predicting every starting NFL quarterback in the NFL next season video from a couple weeks ago, I thought that Andy Dalton would be the next quarterback or the starting quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys this season, because I don't think they're going to be able to pay Dak. I don't think they're going to want to pay Dak at the price. So really your only option now is Andy Dalton, who has had at least kind of one season in the system. And it's like, damn, that's not really an enticing option either, because Dallas isn't ready to move on and try and find another quarterback that is the face of America's game, quote unquote. So, putting that all into perspective, it's hard to see an out for Jerry Jones in this in which he wins. He's going to have to cough up some money either way, or he's going to have to let go of America's quarterback, the face of America's team in Dak Prescott. And, it's probably a little bittersweet for him because, he's, even if he does franchise Dak, it's going to be $70 million guaranteed in a season in which you're only really getting one season of value for that because Dak got injured. And, that's the other kind of underlying variable in all of this is Dak ever going to be the same after this injury? I mean, it was a very gruesome injury. We've seen players come back from injuries like that before. We talked about Alex Smith on the show on Wednesday or Thursday. So it is very possible to come back from those injuries. And granted, it's not as serious as Alex Smith's injury was, but still, is Dak going to even be able to come back and play the same? And that's the other underlying factor in all of this. So it's either you let him go in free agency, let him get paid elsewhere, and just kind of keep Andy Dalton as your quarterback, make some monetary changes, and then try and find a quarterback in next year's draft, or you sign Dak to a $40 million 5-year deal. So what would that be? That would be close to $180 to $200 million or something ridiculous like that. Or, and even worse, so you pay $70 million guaranteed over 2 years, including last year's contract, by franchising him again with the knowledge that you will not be able to afford him next season or the season after this upcoming season. So, Jerry, you've got some tough decisions to make, my man, and you have definitely gone all in and got robbed by the blackjack dealer. That's why you never win at the blackjack table, folks. That's evident by what Jerry Jones has done in Dallas with his football team. Interesting. And just as a finishing thought, trading for Russell Wilson, which you can't do anyways because, you can trade for Russell Wilson, but you can't do a 1-for-1 swap with Dak because he's a free agent. Trading for Russell Wilson probably won't make things much better either because, a $32 million cap hit is significantly less than a $40 million cap hit. That $8 million can actually stretch and go a long way. You can sign 2 players at that rate, like a mid-level signing at that rate, depending on where you need. I mean, $8 million can stretch a long way, but even still, it's like, man, Jerry has really worked the Cowboys into a tough situation here, and it's going to be very interesting to me to see how they actually get out of that. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching this segment from the Hard Headed Sports Podcast. You've heard what I've had to say, now I'm interested to hear what you think as well. If you enjoyed this highlight from the show and want to watch more highlights from the show as they come out after the show's completion, you should definitely subscribe to the YouTube channel, and if you're interested in listening to the entire show in its full-length entirety, you should follow the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Anchor. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you all very soon.